dead. Of course, it clogs and clutters up the mind. If it makes a child so dull and blind, he can no longer understand a fantasy, a fairyland. His brain becomes as soft as cheese. His powers of thinking rust and freeze. He cannot think, he only sees. All right, you'll cry, all right, you'll say. But if we take the set away, our darling children, please explain, what shall we do to entertain? We'll answer this by asking you, what used the darling ones to do? How used they keep themselves contented? Before the monster was invented, have you forgotten? Don't you know? We'll say it very loud and slow. They used to read. They'll read and read and read and read, and then proceed to read some more. Great Scott, gadzooks! One half their lives was reading books. The nursery shelves have books galore, books cluttered up the nursery floor, and in the bedroom by the bed, more books were waiting to be read. Some wondrous, fine, fantastic tales of dragons, gypsies, queens, and whales, and treasure isles, and distant shores, where smugglers rode with muffled oars, and pirates wearing purple pants and sailing ships and elephants, and cannibals crouching round the pot, stirring away at something bought. It smells so good, what it can be. Good gracious, it's Penelope! The younger ones had Patrice Potter, with Mr. Todd, the dirty rotter, and Squirrel Nutkin, and Pigling Bland, and Tiggly Winkle, and just how the camel got his hump, and how the monkey lost his rump, and Mr. Toad, and bless my soul, there's Mr. Rat and Mr. Mole. Oh, books, what books they used to know, those children living long, long ago. So please, oh please, we beg, we pray, go throw your TV set away. And in its place you can install a lovely bookshelf on the wall. Then fill the shelves with lots of books, ignoring all the dirty looks. The screams and yells, the bites and kicks, the children hitting you with sticks. Fear not, because we promise that in about a week or two of having nothing else to do, they'll now begin to feel the need of having something good to read. And once they start, oh boy, you watch the slowly growing joy that fills their hearts. They'll grow so keen, they'll wonder what they've seen in that ridiculous machine. That nauseating, foul, unclean, repulsive television screen. And later, each and every kid will love you more for what you did. P.S. Regarding my TV, we very much regret that we simply shall have to wait and see if we can get him back his height. But if we can't, it serves him right. The end.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Fallon. I'm a gifted and talented teacher here at Indian Avenue School. And I will be reading for you Chapter 28 of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. The title of the chapter is Only Charlie Left. Which room shall it be next? Said Mr. Wonka as he turned and darted into the elevator. Come on, hurry up. We must get going. And how many children are there left now? Little Charlie looked at Grandpa Joe, and Grandpa Joe looked back at little Charlie. But, Mr. Wonka, Grandpa Joe called after him, there's only Charlie left now. Mr. Wonka swung around and stared at Charlie. There was a silence. Charlie stood there holding tightly onto Grandpa Joe's hand. You mean you're the only one left? Mr. Wonka said, pretending to be surprised. Why, yes, whispered Charlie. Yes. Mr. Wonka suddenly exploded with excitement. But my dear boy, he cried out, that means you've won. He rushed out of the elevator and started shaking Charlie's hand so furiously it nearly came off. "Oh, I do congratulate you," he cried. "I really do. I'm absolutely delighted. It couldn't be better. How wonderful this is. I had a hunch, right from the beginning, that it was going to be you." "Well done, Charlie. Well done. This is terrific. Now the fun is really going to start. But we mustn't dilly. We mustn't dally. There's even less time to lose now than there was before. We have an enormous number of things to do before the day is out. Just think of the arrangements that have to be made and the people we have to fetch. But luckily for us, we have the great glass elevator to speed things up. Jump in, my dear Charlie. Jump in. You too, Grandpa Joe, sir. No, after you. That's the way. Now then, this time I shall choose the button we are going to press." Mr. Wonka's bright, twinkling blue eyes rested for a moment on Charlie's face. "Something crazy is going to happen now," Charlie thought. But he wasn't frightened. He wasn't even nervous. He was just terrifically excited, and so was Grandpa Joe. The old man's face was shining with excitement as he watched every move that Mr. Wonka made. Mr. Wonka was reaching for a button high up on the glass ceiling of the elevator. Charlie and Grandpa Joe both craned their necks to read what it said on the little label beside the button. It said, "Up and out." "Up and out," thought Charlie. "What sort of a room is that?" Mr. Wonka pressed the button. The glass doors closed. "Hold on," cried Mr. Wonka. Then, wham! The elevator shot straight up like a rocket. "Yippee!" shouted Grandpa Joe. Charlie was clinging to Grandpa Joe's legs, and Mr. Wonka was holding onto a strap from the ceiling. And up they went, up, straight up this time, with no twistings or turnings, and Charlie could hear the whistling of the air outside as the elevator went faster and faster. "Yippee!" shouted Grandpa Joe again. "Yippee! Here we go!" "Faster!" cried Mr. Wonka, banging the wall of the elevator with his hand. "Faster, faster! If we don't go any faster than this, we shall never get through." "Through what?" shouted Grandpa Joe. "What have we got to get through?" "Aha!" cried Mr. Wonka. "You wait and see. I've been longing to press this button for years, but I've never done it until now. I was tempted many times. Oh yes, I was tempted, but I couldn't bear the thought of making a great big hole in the roof of the factory. Here we go, boys. Up and out." "But you don't mean," shouted Grandpa Joe, "you don't really mean that this elevator—" "Oh, yes, I do," answered Mr. Wonka. "You wait and see. Up and out." But, it's made of glass," shouted Grandpa Joe. "It'll break into a million pieces." "I suppose it might," said Mr. Wonka, cheerful as ever. "But it's pretty thick glass all the same." The elevator rushed on, going up and up and up, faster and faster and faster. Then suddenly, crash! And the most tremendous noise of splintering wood and broken tiles came from directly above their heads. And Grandpa Joe shouted, "Help! It's the end! Mr. Wonka said, "No, we're not. We're through. We're out." Sure enough, the elevator had shot right up through the roof of the factory and was now rising into the sky like a rocket, and the sunshine was pouring in through the glass roof. In 5 seconds, they were 1,000 feet up in the sky. "The elevator's gone mad!" shouted Grandpa Joe. "Have no fear, my dear sir," said Mr. Wonka calmly, and he pressed another button. The elevator stopped. It stopped and hung in mid-air, hovering like a helicopter, hovering over the factory and over the very town itself, which lay spread out below them like a picture postcard. Looking down through the glass floor on which he was standing, Charlie could see the small flyaway houses and the streets and the snow that lay thickly over everything. It was an eerie and frightening feeling to be standing on clear glass high up in the sky. It made you feel that you weren't standing on anything at all. "Are we all right?" cried Grandpa Joe. "How does this thing stay up?" "Candy power," said Mr. Wonka. 1,000,000 candy power. "Oh, look!" he cried, pointing down. "There go the other children. They're returning home." And we have a discussion question for this chapter. The question is, when it's just Charlie, Mr. Wonka says that, "I had a hunch, right from the beginning, that it was going to be you." Page 142. Have you ever known someone where, from the moment you met them, you had a hunch about their character? Who was it? Were they good like Charlie, or not so great like the other children? Mrs. Fallon signing off. Hope you enjoyed chapter 28.